we're going to talk some jazz now. The Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra has a concert coming up, and they're bringing back to town one of the co-founders of the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra, Sasha Boychouk. This concert is this Sunday, 2 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. They're featuring Artie Shaw's Clarinet Concerto. Well, the other co-founder, and he's the artistic director of the WJO, Richard Gillis, came into the studio this morning to chat. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming in this morning.
Yeah, it was great. Mm-hmm. Traffic wasn't great, but...
Traffic wasn't great. Yeah, that's true. You don't often have to drive. You usually out by the university. That's true. But this isn't too early for you.
Nope.
That's true. Are you usually teaching by this time? Sometimes.
I try not to. At 8:30 in the morning. I try to leave it a little later.
Too early.
Practice, though.
So you've been with the WJO since day one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
And when did that start? 1997.
1997. Seems like, and is a long time ago now. Mm-hmm. But Sasha Boychouk and I knew each other a little bit, and I was directing the University of Manitoba jazz bands, and we actually took the jazz band to France that year. And I wanted to bring somebody to guest perform with the university jazz band. There was a festival in Belfort, France, and so I invited Sasha to come, and so he soloed with the band when we were there, and we talked a little bit. I don't remember if we talked a little bit on the way there, but we certainly talked on the way back about putting together a group, and that's where it started, and that was 20 years ago, practically today.
Mm-hmm. It's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it's one thing to have a quartet or a quintet or a trio, but when you're talking about a full jazz band, I mean, the idea of being able to keep that going for 1 year, let alone 20 years, is pretty phenomenal. Tell us a bit about what that takes.
Right. I think keeping any group together for 20 years is,
that's true, whether or not it's a trio or quartet.
Thing.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we were the right idea in the right place, and jazz has been great in Winnipeg for many years, and great musicians. Ron Paley was instrumental in the lives of so many jazz musicians in town. He deserves a lot of credit. When I first came to Winnipeg, I remember being invited to rehearsals and sitting in and rehearsing on Thursdays at Silver Heights to begin with. I think Ron had created a lot of positive vibes and people helping each other, because Ron is just that way. So I guess for me, I graduated with classical trumpet degrees, doctorate from the University of Michigan. So I was expecting to be playing brass quintet and conducting the concert band and maybe the orchestra, that sort of thing. I enjoyed playing jazz, but I was not a studied player. But to stay around, I came for a 1-year position, and then to stay around, they wanted somebody to lead the jazz band, which I had some experience doing at the University of Saskatchewan, but it was not what I was planning on. Mm-hmm. So I took it over because I wanted to stay in Winnipeg. It was just it seemed like a great community, and it got hooked on the material. There's so much great big band material, so much, and it varies, the type of material out there. So after getting to know the material so well, or at least over a period of a few years, because I started in 1991, I had it in my mind that of forming a professional group and doing concerts, not let's say playing at clubs, but actually doing concerts, projects. And so that's where the genesis came from, just this thought. And when I talked to Sasha, he had kind of a similar thought in mind. Mm-hmm. So that's why we put it together.
Well, we're glad you did. We're definitely glad you did. So this next concert that's coming up with Sasha is kind of perfect for you, because it melds the two worlds of classical and jazz in a sense, right? It's a concerto, which is typically a classical piece, but it's a concerto for clarinet written by Artie Shaw, one of the great jazz clarinetists of all time. So, first of all, has the WJO done this before?
We've done the Clarinet Concerto before with Sasha several years ago, and this concert was kind of an accident in the sense that we had another guest booked, but because of an accident, the guest just asked if we could put the concert off. So that left an open concert. And I thought, well, this is the 20th year, and it would be perfect to get Sasha. But Sasha is so hard to pin down because he's busy. He's a busy musician, and for him to plan a year ahead of time, it's just too much. And but because we just had, by the time I found out, we had about 3 months, he was able to clear his schedule and make it. So for us, it was just perfect because otherwise we couldn't count on necessarily getting him here.
So tell us about the piece, the Clarinet Concerto.
Well, a lot of jazz musicians try to make, have, there's a lot of musicians that want to learn more and delve into classical, and even, classical and popular, like Gershwin. And a lot of classical players that really want to delve into jazz. So there's this mix, but they come from different traditions and different approaches. It's like Shakespeare to improv theater. It's really, there's real differences. This piece, I think that Artie Shaw was the same. He wanted to explore more serious, if you want to call it serious. He wanted to explore more structured, classically related, or at least in that tradition, pieces. And so it didn't really start off as Clarinet Concerto. It started off as, I forget what the name of the piece was, and I think it was even written for a movie from 1941. And but it kind of grew into his later versions of it were a Clarinet Concerto, because it's very much a feature, but it swings. It swings. It's not. It's certainly not a written out concerto. It's your general form, and the band parts are certainly written out, but the clarinet part is
room to move,
very much
some
improvisational. Yeah.
And Sasha's going to be performing it. That's kind of cool. He's back to town.
Sasha's a great clarinet player. I mean, that was his principal instrument, and when he was in Ukraine and Russia, and when he came over here, he was also he was with the saxophone quartet, and he defected in, I think it was 1990. So.
Excellent. So we're going to, I've got some music lined up from that in a second, but also, let's talk a little bit about the season, the next season, the 2017-2018 season. I'm in the studio with Richard Gillis. He's the co-founder and artistic director of the WJO, Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra, and we were just talking about the upcoming concert this weekend on Sunday. For information about that, go to winnipegjazzorchestra.com for information and tickets. So next year, give us a quick rundown of what's happening next year.
Well, we're starting the year off with the director of the Basie Big Band, Scotty Barnhart, and that'll be quite exciting. Basie always goes over well. It's very accessible to people because Basie swings so much, and so this is a real opportunity for us. And the November concert is probably the biggest project we've undertaken, and we're putting together a Suite 150 of Canadian composers across Canada that we've had some connection with, because there's so many great ones, but Fred Stride and Christine Jensen and David Braid, names are escaping me right now, but we're gonna have about 9 or 10 different movements. Jeff Preslav from here in town, Hilaria Duran, another one. So we're putting together this suite to celebrate Canada's 150th birthday.
Sort of like a quilt.
Sort of, yes.
A quilt of Canadian musical culture.
Want to keep every movement to about 4 minutes or so, and just make it a real a portrait or a perspective. Not necessarily a description. Not a scene from the mountains, but just a perspective.
Not like a Oscar Peterson Canadian landscape.
Well, and that one's coming. That one's coming in March. I actually thought I would put the two things on the same concert, and then after reflecting for 5 minutes, I thought, well, maybe not,
too much,
because that would be a little bit too much. That way, in November, the first half, we can just feature some of the special guests that we will have for that concert, and March will be Oscar Peterson. That Canadiana Suite, and plus some of the other things that he's done.
And that's called Night Train. That's in March.
Train.
That's his famous album, Night Train, right there. And then you got a Christmas party in December.
We do. We're trying something a little bit different. And and we got some special guests. An Icelandic guitarist that I play with a lot is going to be there.
Bjorn.
Yeah, you know him.
I know him.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know him. I know his music.
Yeah.
Great player.
And we have some other people coming for that.
City of the Stars in February.
That was an idea of one of the board members, and he thought, okay, obviously the movie that's come out, but it's
La
not
La
just
Land, yeah.
yes, but it's not just that movie. There's for so long, Hollywood has, well, Count Basie's played on on some film, and there's many jazz musicians and big bands that have played on different movies, and musicals have been a big thing in Hollywood. So we're going to delve into a little bit of that music. And
then wrapping up the season with Broadway and beyond.
Right, and Mike Jensen is a tremendous musician. He's just now, did he win? I know he was nominated just recently for Juno, and at the last Junos, and he great singer, great writer, good fine piano player, and he was supposed to be at this May concert, but he had to postpone it. So we thought, well, let's just finish off the year next year with him.
He's from Winnipeg, right, Mike?
I
think he is.
I think he is.
I think he's from Winnipeg. Yeah.
Gilles Fournier, who's our bass player, said, you've got to get Mike, because he's done a lot of playing across Canada with Mike, and a lot of the suggestions I get for programming come from other, the other musicians, the jazz musicians in town. Sometimes audience people. I've even had it where people have been related to certain people, and so we've been able to get them in. And I know Kenny G's got his relatives in town, so maybe you can work on that. Maybe in 2030 we might have room. But there's so many possibilities for programs. It's just my list of possibilities is just. I just had another one yesterday, which was a great one, which I'll put on the following season. And it's the problem that I've found sometimes is that 6 concerts in a season is not enough. Not enough time, yeah. And of course, then aside from that, it's 20 people. It's not like 3 people, and then you can negotiate how much you pay everybody, or you take the door. With 17 people, and it's a more of a commitment. Plus, plus the guest, and the guest really. A guest isn't always necessary because the band is what makes it swing, but it really kind of gives focus to a concert. It's also very good for the band, and it expands our kind of experiences in terms of as musicians. I mean, the growth in the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra and the musicians has been, amazing over 20 years. There are concerts we did near the beginning that we wouldn't do them that way again because either there's certain pieces we wouldn't do, or the certain programming we wouldn't do, or certainly we would play it better, more mature. The group has matured so much. Well, that's awesome. Richard, thanks for coming in. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. And so I just wanted to mention again, this weekend, coming up on Sunday, Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra presents Sasha Boychouk and the WJO, of course, performing some music by Artie Shaw, his Clarinet Concerto. And in fact, I'm going to play a little bit of that one right now. Here is Artie Shaw himself playing his concerto for clarinet.